Former Newcastle and Everton footballer Christian Atsu has been found dead in Turkey following last week's earthquakes. Well, joining me now is Ghanaian sports journalist Owuraku Ompofo, and I do express my apologies if I've mispronounced that, but thank you so much for joining us. Just your reaction to this news, and can you explain to our audience just how much of a big loss this is for Ghanaian football?
Well, it's been very difficult to take. One that perhaps a lot of people could say that they could see it coming, but it has really been, an emotional roller coaster, not just for me, but for a number of Ghanaians who thought that they had witnessed a miracle in the early hours of Tuesday, just about 26 hours after it was reported that Christian Atsu had been, put under the rubble by the earthquake. And the news that we got on Tuesday was that he had been rescued, and a lot of people were joyous and thought that, there's finally been some good news after a very difficult 26 hours. But there were reports just the day after that the club, did falter with that and retracted the information because there was a possibility of a mistaken identity. And so once again, Ghanaians went from 100 straight to 0, and it was just a matter of hope now as the hours pass by. But it's been more than a week, and finally, there's been the news that he's passed away. A lot of Ghanaians still held on to hope that he could be still found alive, from the information from the agent that due to the scans that had been taken on the body, there were still some lives under the building that he stayed. But unfortunately, he didn't come out alive. And so it's been a very bad start to the weekend for a lot of Ghanaians. It's been very quiet in town. People are really sad. Christian Atsu, he's one of the players that a lot of people hold dearly, not just for the football that he plays, but also for the community work that he's been putting in.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. He sounds like not just an incredible footballer, but an incredible human being. Christian Atsu, of course, was likened to Lionel Messi in Ghana, but also did a lot of charity work. So what's the reaction been to this news across the nation?
Well, just on the Messi bit, I remember in an interview with BBC Sport, after he scored his second goal in 2 games against Malawi in an Africa Cup of Nations qualifier, he was asked that he's been compared to, Lionel Messi. What does he think about that? And he was like, no, there's no Ghanaian Messi. And there would never be another Messi. And he cannot even do up to 1% of what Messi is doing. It's impossible. And he said that, smiling and laughing because he's always been a Messi guy and he's always looked up to him. And so I think that interview defined who Atsu was. He was very humble, very jovial, and most importantly, he always wanted to put a smile on the faces of people. He was asked about his charity work, and he broke down in tears that whenever he's driving around in Ghana and he sees children, begging on the street, his heart aches, and that's one thing that he wants to put a stop to. And so he's always been actively involved in donations. He's an ambassador for Arms Around the Child. It's an organization that helps children, provide orphans with, basic amenities like clothes, homes, and education. And it's not just about children as well. He's been actively involved in the prison work here in Ghana with his passion for prisons. He was connected to the Crime Check Foundation through in a way where he could reach them behind bars. And Atsu was a strong advocate for the passage of the non-custodial, sentencing bill, which was passed here in Ghana into law. And so essentially, not every crime meant that you do jail time. There was the introduction of, community service order, the probation order, and, supervision order, amongst others. He's also helped various prisoners. One that comes to mind is a 62-year-old lady who avoided a 10-year in prison. Now, Atsu paid for the release of this woman. She was affectionately known as Mama Teresa. Now, she was sentenced 10 years to jail for possessing marijuana. But, the former Chelsea star intervened and paid for her fine, and she avoided prison. And so there are a number of other stories, other prisoners who shared their stories that when they come out of prison, Atsu helps them in terms of setting up a business for them, a startup, to ensure that they have a livelihood so that they do not return to prison as well. So he's been very influential off the pitch in Ghana. I think that's why it hurts a lot more, because a lot of people depend on Atsu, not just his family members. So it's still going to be the same world, but I think in the end it's going to be a bit emptier because we're not going to have a wonderful soul like Christian Atsu around.
Okay, Owuraku Ompofo, and I hope I've said that correctly. We really appreciate you joining us today and our condolences over Christian Atsu. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you too.